Hello and welcome to Frozen Synapse 2 Developer Diary number 15. I'm Ian Hardingham, designer and lead programmer on Frozen Synapse 2, and today we are going to talk about City multiplayer and answer your questions from last video in the mailbag. Let's get to it. Now, for the last 3.5 weeks I have been working on making the whole City game multiplayer. I woke up a month ago and realised that it was a feature that I really wanted to have. It's helped me get through the last year of making this game as fully featured as it is, thinking that I was not going to have to make it multiplayer. But by this stage, where most of the features are pretty much in, a good probably 80% I would say, I was able to take an objective look, work out how hard it was going to be, and just go for it. So that's what I've been spending the last month doing, and we're actually pretty much playable at this point. I budgeted 2 months for doing this properly, 1 month for implementing the actual mechanics of being able to start a multiplayer game and play it, and 1 month for making it good, working out what different things need to be done to make it a really good experience. So I'm just going to start off by talking about the mechanics of exactly how a multiplayer city game of Frozen Synapse 2 works, and then I will get on to explaining some of the things that will be able to happen, and I'll be asking for your feedback on all of this, so listen up. So yeah, again, Frozen Synapse 2's City game is a really exciting grand strategy game where a lot of factions vie for control of this procedurally generated city. Of course, it's going to be awesome if you and some friends can play as different factions using all of the features and competition in the game. And that's just going to be really fun. So I'm really excited to have got here. The first thing to say is that anything you can do in single player city match, you'll be able to do in multiplayer. All of your other playing partners will be just like other factions. When they join your game, they'll either be able to start a new faction somewhere on the city map, or you will also be able to get them to take over an existing faction if you so desire. Let's take a look at how multiplayer actually works on the nuts and bolts side of things. So if you've been playing a single player game, doesn't matter how long you've been playing for, and you decide you want to bring some other people in on it, you click on the assistant icon down here and you click on activate for multiplayer, and it tells you must be connected to the server to activate for multiplayer. So I'm going to go and do that. Now log on to the server, and you can either then continue your city game or start a new one. I'm going to start a new one here. Wait for it to load. And here we are. So once again, we click on the assistant icon and we click activate for multiplayer, and we get a little token down here saying the game is now multiplayer. Others may join you by searching for your username in the City Multiplayer tab of the main menu. So I'm just going to go and pretend that we're joining a game to show you guys how that works. Here we are at the very exciting advanced screen, and I don't know why I'm showing you this really, but I am. So you can click on the Join City Game hosted by player, and you type in Ian and you press OK. Now it's not going to work now because I'm actually recording in my office at home, so I don't have 2 computers here to host, but you get the idea. Basically, it's very easy to convert an existing city game into multiplayer, and it's very easy to join one of your friends who is currently playing. Now here we are back at the city screen, and we've made our game multiplayer, and for the purposes of this video, let's pretend that we also have someone else playing with us. Let's call him Bin. Now, one of the reasons I'm taking this rather boring method to explaining this stuff to you is because I want a bit of feedback in case I'm doing anything fundamentally wrong in terms of interface. With a game like this, basically a grand strategy game, it takes quite a long time to play. It's kind of a bit of a different proposition to basic Frozen Synapse. Frozen Synapse was designed to be a multiplayer game that you could dip in and out of, play at your own convenience, very quick matches, don't have to be online at the same time as your opponent. And it goes quite a long way away from that with the city game, because as I said, this is a grand strategy game. You need to be online at the same time as the other players in order to play it. That already is a big difference from Frozen Synapse. And of course, it's a kind of game that can last for hours. So really important to me is you take those limitations for granted. You say, well, people are going to want to play this game, and people are happy to play big long form strategy games online. They like doing that, so people are going to be cool with that. How can I make that as good as possible? So you do have to be online at the same time as other people to play the game. You can't really get around that. The core of the game is advancing the clock, lots of things happening, and you're responding to different events, and those are just going to require everyone to be online at once. The biggest way in which I'm trying to mitigate that is hot joining and hot dropping. So hot joining means that people can join the city game at any time. You and your friend Bob can play for a couple of hours, and then your friend Tristan can join in as well. And hot dropping is pretty cool as well, because if Bob then has to go to dinner or go away on work to the Cayman Islands for 3 days, he can leave the game and he can leave his faction in control of the AI, and actually he will be able to tell the AI to do either nothing at all, or to follow the contracts that he's created for his own faction, or basically to continue operating as a normal AI faction, and you'll be able to set your attitudes towards the other players if you actually want to have the AI make decisions with your feelings in mind. So again, it seems like a really strange place to start with such an exciting feature as multiplayer is this kind of stuff, but I think it's really important to talk about what I'm planning, what I've put in, so you guys can tell me if anything sounds wrong. So basically, you've got all these features. I've spent hours at this point showing you guys all the different things you can do in Frozen Synapse 2 so far. There's a lot of other stuff to show you, and you can imagine that you will be organising your squads, you'll be getting money, doing contracts, dealing with incursions, you'll be trying to control the city by sending your squads to different areas, and you and the other players will be competing for incursions especially, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of foul play going on. So when it comes to these games, the closest thing that I've been able to think of in terms of a comp for the city multiplayer is probably something like Total War. And the reason I say that is because Total War has a big strategic overworld level, and of course it has the big tactical matches as well. So when I was looking at doing this, the first thing that flagged up to me, what are all the players going to do while 1 or 2 players are doing a mission that doesn't involve the other players? So if I have a mission against Blue Sunlight, the AI, that may take 15 minutes to half an hour to play out. If I'm playing against one of the other players, that also may take 15 to 30 minutes to play out, and the other players are going to have to wait around. So again, I do understand that that's just part and parcel of these kind of games. There's a limitation to a certain extent how you can ever mitigate that. I think it's overcome by how exciting it is to have such an interesting, deep game to be able to play multiplayer. When it comes down to it, you have the option of simulating any AI matches. So if you don't want to keep everyone waiting around, you can just press simulate when you start a mission, and it can have an outcome. And we'll see how people respond to that. People may like that, people might not. Obviously, you'll be able to set up city games which actually don't have AI factions doing very much, so they're less likely to get in the way, because people will definitely want to play 2 or 4 or 8 player of this without the AI factions being annoyances, although I'd expect that to be a less likely option. And the game will, as I think is fairly usual for these kind of games, be sort of somewhat optimized for 2 players, because that's the most likely scenario, and that's also the scenario which is easiest to optimize for. So if you and Bob are playing a game, you can have Bob play as the AI in a U versus AI match. You can have Bob play as a couple of your units to make it less boring, so he can always be involved in your missions if you so desire. And once you get to 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 players, this is just going to be part of the game. I'm going to see how this plays out in closed beta. Quite a lot of you guys have got in touch to sign up for the closed beta. I really appreciate that. We're starting to get a decent, small, but hopefully dedicated list. I think it's going to really help me iron out these bugs. So the headline things are, multiplayer should be really awesome. We've got the hot join, the hot drop. You do have to be online at the same time as other guys to play. There is a certain scenario if you and your mission opponent are the only people who are online, you can finish your mission without the other players being online. But again, without seeing this in the wild, with you guys, with the closed beta testers actually playing it, I won't be able to see where the stress points are. So that's the stuff that's going on. I really have to say, I'm really super excited about this, and I really hope you guys are too. You've seen what the city has to offer and what kind of stuff is going on here. I think that having all of that with other players on the city map and then playing these actual missions, which end up being very different and sort of quite a lot bigger with new options than existing FS matches, will be really cool. But as usual, give me all your feedback and I will listen to it. And I will answer it where that's pertinent. Talking of which, let's move on from this picture of the city and let's put your questions on the left hand side of the screen and I will attempt to answer them. Okay, here we have the YouTube comments up, and I'm going to start off with a couple of negative comments from last week, which is really helpful. So let's start out. Quite a lot of you weren't huge fans of what the new ignore/focus area interface looks like. Basically, clicking boxes didn't sound like it would be very good to you guys. So I'm going to keep looking at that. I'm going to go back to the drawing board. I think the idea of having it sort of contained within the order is really good, but maybe I do have to allow you to move arbitrary shaped boxes around, sort of somewhat similar to FS's system. I could definitely understand that, so I need more playtesting of that. You've definitely been heard on that one. Second, I got quite a lot of feedback on the minigun flamethrower issue. You guys definitely want those two weapons to be significantly different, and I can understand that. The idea of a minigun, the idea of a flamethrower, they do feel like really different weapons. So I actually have a different design for the flamethrower that I've played around with in the past that I'm going to implement based on the strength of your guys' responses. I'm looking at the flamethrower as being a weapon that you can fire into a room and that it will sort of fill up the room with flame. So I'm going to look at that when I get time. No idea when that will be. So thank you for those comments. Some guy says he wants to rebind controls for pause and rewind and other things. That sounds very reasonable. I've put that on the long-term list. So hopefully I'll be able to do that. Jean-Michael Villancourt asks, so aside from perhaps simply merging every single faction, how does one win for Synapse 2? And he talks about how Civ and other 4X games have different win conditions for research, diplomacy, etc, etc, etc. Now, I think I talked a bit about this in the past. The actual win conditions for FS2 are to do with the other major factions and their approach to the incursioning force Sonata. One of them wants to sort of worship Sonata and have them come and take over. One of them wants to research it properly. One of them wants to harness it for military gain, and one of which just wants to destroy it. Now, those are basically the end conditions that you can choose one of those, and either with or without the help of that faction that represents that belief, go for that one. As I've said before, I personally don't find the end game of these particular kind of games particularly interesting, but it's something that you've got to have in there. And as with this game, this kind of game usually has a lot of different types, or at least several different kinds of win conditions. So we will have that. So I hope that answers that question. Now, let's keep on looking. Okay. Xbon1 asks, will Synapse 2 launch with the free copy for a friend system? I actually don't know the answer to this question. That's about 50-50 right now. We do have to look into whether Steam still allows it. And we also have to look into it whether it's something that we still want to do. I loved doing that for FS and for Cortex. It was something that was really good and worked out really well. I just don't know the answer to that yet. But thank you very much for asking the question. EdboxLP asks, is the I Feel Lucky button going to be back? Yes, definitely the I Feel Lucky button will be back. It's very important. Aaron gives some aesthetic feedback. I believe he's saying that some of the guns icons, which you can actually see here in this image, with a pistol and a sniper rifle, that some of the guns icons are a little bit too representative and not as sort of nicely abstract as the old FS ones. I will forward that on to our art director. I think that's a decent point. Christopher Budden, who, judging by his avatar, is someone that I talk to on Twitter quite a lot, so hi, he asks if shotguns have gone. No, shotguns have not gone. Shotguns are really important. I don't know why he doesn't like shotguns so much. Slide Drum asks, any comment on mod support? Yes, I have lots of comments on mod support. One of the nice things about Frozen Synapse 2 is that the city game is almost entirely made using TalkScript. I've really gone very high level with the implementation of this, and most of the logic and the definition of data is done in script, apart from a couple of things that need to be low level, like the path finding, and we will be making the scripts completely open to you guys, possibly at launch, possibly just after launch. We'll do whatever we need to do to make it Steam Workshop compatible as well. So I can definitely confirm right now that the city game will be highly moddable, and that includes making your own units within the abilities that we have with the unit data blocks, which is actually pretty in-depth. You can do an awful lot. So we never really got any kind of modding into FS1. I was a bit too scared to expose the script files to FS1 for various reasons, and I don't feel that way at all about FS2 and especially the city game stuff. So it will be strongly moddable. I'm really hoping you guys can take that and run with it, and I'll be really intrigued to see what you guys do. A quick comment on the UI. I talked about the UI quite a lot last week and got some really good ideas from you guys. Now, one thing I'm definitely going to try is being able to collapse specific waypoints. So if you have a waypoint with a bunch of orders and loads of wait orders on there, I'm definitely wanting to put a little sort of minus/plus thing that allows you to collapse that, so you can just get rid of some of the clutter on the screen. I've had a lot of other good ideas. I'm not going to add a huge number of different things, I think, but that's definitely an idea I liked. And there's also some stuff about selecting other units that I like as well. Now let's keep on going down here. Let's keep on going. What else have we got? So yes. Okay, my voice is getting tired, so I'm going to call an end to this soon, but I do have a few things to respond to. Debated Nothing asks if smoke grenades will hide units standing in it from the player's and AI's view in the light mode. The answer to that is no. You will still be able to see the units as the commander. He also asks if you'll be able to tell your units to fire blindly into the smoke. The answer to that is no. It's an interesting idea, but that doesn't really work as a mechanic, just an FS. But thank you. Subriel has a really interesting point that maybe toxic smoke grenades could only kill units that stop in there. I think that's really interesting. It's something I could see vaguely trying, but I don't think that's an actual improvement, but I really do like the idea. Iranin113 asks for some multiplayer information. Now, I will do another video that's solely based on what's new in multiplayer. The big features are one turns, which I think it was our first couple of videos I talked about a lot, and obviously city multiplayer is big as well. I'll talk about any other stuff that you could see. He's asked for some pre-created maps, definitely something that I could go with, and a mode where you choose your own units. You know, that might just be one which just I don't have time to do. We had quite a lot of that in Frozen Cortex and it was fine, but I do only have limited time. So that's just not something I'm particularly excited about putting in myself, so may not end up getting put in. But thank you for that question. Okay, and now for 3 final questions, which I've just managed to destroy by pressing the wrong button on my computer. I could just stop recording, but actually I think it's more exciting to keep it here. Right, these guys at the bottom. Sorry, SKLD, that mailing list form doesn't work. I have informed the appropriate authorities. Right. Lemon Cell asks, how does the story of FS2 compare to the story from FS1? It is set after FS1. There will be some of the same characters. The lore is continuous and well defined by Paul, who is head of writing and lore. Dear Miss Clemens has a really good question/idea about contracts having more detailed elements, stuff like you must not destroy the terrain, or a package must be taken without the use of a vehicle or with use of a vehicle, or use a single knife mercenary. Really interesting stuff. I can definitely see where you're going with that. That's something I could see investigating in the next 6 months if I think there's something missing, or beyond that otherwise. And very finally, Immortal Sonar asks, how long would it take the player to get to the end game of FS2? I don't know the answer to that yet. balancing how quickly things happen, how quickly you can upgrade, how quickly stuff moves on to the end game, and what would cause stuff to move on to the end game is stuff that will happen much nearer the very end of development, to try and work out what kind of experience I want to give people. I mean, just to sort of spitball on that for a minute, it's the kind of thing where a lot of people don't ever want to be forced to get to the end game, and that they would much rather it was a thing that they triggered themselves when they wanted to. And I'm kind of in that camp myself. But, you know, it's also understandable that you want the game to be progressing as you play as well. That's important as well. So trying to get that right is hard. If anyone has any useful input on that, that would be much appreciated. So there you go. I stumbled a bit during this week's episode, but thank you very much for listening. As always, just completely blown away by how great all the feedback has been. I had a couple people saying that they appreciated the open nature of FS2's development. Well, it is hard sometimes to show stuff that's, you know, not finished, in a bad state. Sometimes show ideas that people don't like. But it's just been the most useful thing in the world to me, and I just plan on keeping on doing it. It's just a great experience to get real feedback every single week. So thank you again, and I will be back next week with some more words. Goodbye.